Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the United She Stands podcast. Today, we are interviewing a candidate who ran for the Ohio Senate District 25, which is my Ohio Senate District. And I voted for this candidate who is Jesse Baker. He is a progressive and he ran against an establishment Dem here in Ohio. He ultimately lost the race, but he ran a hell of a campaign and he is here to talk to me all about it. So a little more about Jesse here. He's an Ohio native from Findlay and a graduate of The Ohio State University, now living in Columbus's Hilltop neighborhood with his wife Emily and their two cats. Rather than a career in politics, Jesse spent his professional life in business and technology, solving problems and helping organizations operate more effectively. Raised by a single father, Jesse has personally navigated food stamps, years without health insurance, and student loan debt. He didn't just observe these systems, he's lived them. That experience drives his belief that the Statehouse has grown disconnected from working Ohioans and that the Democratic Party has prioritized its own power over boldly fighting for people. Jesse's campaign was centered on fighting for working families, protecting individual rights, and building a more affordable Ohio, led by transparent, courageous leaders willing to put real solutions ahead of partisan games and moneyed interests. Enjoy this conversation. It was so fun to chat with Jesse and talk about his very successful campaign, and I hope it inspires one or many of you to run as well. Hey, Jesse, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Glad to be here.
So let's just jump right into it. You describe yourself as just some guy who decided to run for state senate. What was the specific moment or breaking point that really made you say, I'm actually doing this?
I think like a lot of people probably running for the first time in this election, it was, 2024 election night. You sat there and watching the numbers come in, and I am one of those people who I've always been into politics. So election night has always been kind of a ritual of sitting there and watching the results come in and bouncing between whatever news source you can find as people are calling it. And I feel like it was fairly early on that it felt we've as Democrats have screwed up. And that election cycle really shook me probably in a way that I haven't felt since, which is to say, I felt like the establishment Democrats have once again forced an option on us that people were not asking for, or that more than enough were not asking for, that it felt very self-defeating in a way. So kind of the next day, I'd always played around in my mind of running, and I have felt the same pain that I think a lot of millennials and Gen Z have felt, and Gen Y, which is our representatives tend to be too old, too out of touch, and too not connected with what our lives have looked like. And so I did, the very first thing I did was look up, you actually had the Amy from Run for Something on. I actually went to that website and looked at what races were available, because I just felt like I had to throw my hat in and do something, because nothing was getting where I thought it needed to go. And so I saw, hey, my address, my district, we're up for a Senate race. I went online, looked at who my representative was, and looked into the history. And I can't speak for everybody, but I feel that if somebody is primarying an incumbent, it's generally because they feel like more needs to be done. And that's just kind of what I felt. I looked at my opponent's history. I said, I can't even tell you what issues he stands for. If you go to his website, there's nothing on there other than that he's a Democrat. And when you look at some of the votes that were introduced in the past, some of the bills he's introduced, I felt like this was part of the problem, was an establishment Democrat doing things that felt more about controlling power, the meager power that the Democrats in Ohio have, rather than making a bold statement to move us forward. And I was just like, it's time. I was 35 when that first happened, and I said, 35, that's the right time to do it, man. Let's go. If I screw up, I'm not too old. I can keep running.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. So the district that you ran for was actually my district, and I was so excited to vote for you because you ran as a progressive challenger to the establishment Democrat incumbent, Bill DeMora. Mm-hmm. So you talked about why you were ready and why you felt this needed to happen. But what did you see in that race that made you think the district was also ready for a different kind of Democrat?
I live in Hilltop, which for those who don't know, Hilltop is a older district, a little bit more lower income in certain areas. A lot of young families starting out. We were lucky to buy a home here in 2021, and even in that couple of years, I have seen our property taxes go up hundreds of dollars a month. I know other people are feeling that too. We have a large immigrant population, and seeing the amount of damage that was being done by this administration for that population, and seeing that I don't think I saw many people, especially Demora, do anything specifically. He was not at protests. He was not out at streets. He was not doing the things that I think we need to be doing as a political party. And then looking at the kind of demographics of our district, right? We have young families and young voters. This overlaps with campus, the OSU campus. It overlaps with the west side of Clintonville, which has a lot of starting families and starting homes. It has a lot of lower income people the further west you go into the district. And those are the people that I feel I'm connected with because I was raised by a single father. I was young and was on food stamps in my early 20s. I've gone to college. I went to community college. I went to OSU. I've got student loans. Watching my property taxes go up, I felt very connected to the problems that people themselves are probably feeling. And to be frank, I think establishment Democrats are leaving those people behind with more concerted efforts on maintaining moneyed interest.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at the young demographics and I look at the voter turnouts, I feel what I think a lot of people are probably beginning to realize, which is that progressive candidates drive turnout, and giving people an option to at least vote for something they believe in, especially after 2024, where we had a massive drop off of young voters. I felt like somebody needs to do something to at least start moving this party further left, at least even in the smallest amount we can, because that's going to drive those younger voters and those early families and middle income voters to the polls. It just will. We
Mm-hmm.
see progressive candidates have a really high turnout and a really good vote kind of stealing from establishment Democrats, stealing for lack of a better word.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just felt like, you got a campus in there, man. They need to have something to believe in. Those kind of people are the ones who are going to feel a lot of this economic strain that we're inevitably going to see, that we've been feeling since the inflation has started rising in 2024 from all the tariffs. Give them something to believe in.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like folks in college are probably so much more excited to vote for someone who is within, a decade or two of their age.
No
You know
doubt.
what I mean? Like, I feel like that's a big thing
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, no doubt. The people, right? Everyone knows it, right? We're watching our legislators get older and older and not retire. I mean, what do we see?
Mhm.
Like 7 Democrats, I think, died
7
in
or
office.
8?
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the past year.
Like, what?
It's crazy. And like I don't have a desire to be a career politician. I just wanted to make sure people had something to vote for and to have, if I could get in there, to push us further left.
Yeah, absolutely. And as someone who was able to vote for you, thank you for giving me that option. I know we've talked in person a few times, and I just feel like I can't thank you enough for giving me an option on the ballot. And for my congressional House district, I was also able to vote for not establishment Democrat. So I just felt like very lucky this
Yeah.
primary season.
This was a good primary
Yeah.
season. We had a lot of primaries, and I think that's one of the other reasons why I ran, is just like, we need primaries. Like,
Hmm.
leaving seats unchallenged doesn't get us anywhere.
Yeah.
It just gets the people who already have power the ability to continue to kind of do what they want to do without feeling the pressure
Yeah.
of voters actually speaking out against it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I feel like there's probably a lot of folks out there that feel compelled to run for office like you, but just don't know how, and I know Run for Something is a really great org that can
Yeah.
help, get you on your feet and whatnot. But let's talk about how you actually built your campaign and the
Ooh.
infrastructure, the volunteers, and all of that. How did you do it? Like, my hope for this answer here is that someone listening to this can understand what how they can potentially run a grassroots campaign.
You know, I always feel like I may not be the best person to ask because I kind of did it all by myself. I did not have a campaign manager. I did
And I
not
think
have a
that's an okay answer. I think
yeah.
that's honest, and like you still ran a very successful campaign. So I'm glad you're sharing that.
Yeah, I did all of it by myself. We didn't have no one came and tapped me. There was no campaign manager reaching out, and I think that that's important to know because it's not like you need that to get started.
Yes, and I think that's probably a huge barrier in people's minds. Like, oh, I
Yeah.
need I need to hire a team and blah blah blah. And like, yeah, that is useful and helpful. It's not necessary. So yeah, I'm
No.
sharing this.
You don't need a ton of money to get started either. Money will come from people who get excited, and you don't need a lot of it, period. But what you do need, and I would recommend if anybody's listening has any interest in running, look at deadlines like
Mhm.
now. Get an idea of when paperwork needs to get turned in because I will say that there is a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of deadlines for various things that are going to crop up. Like, when do you get your ballot submissions or your signatures to get on the ballot submitted? How do you get that process started? Who do you need to talk to? And for the most part, a great resource if you are in any larger areas like a city, or if you have a good board of elections that you can get to, those people are phenomenal. I think the amount of stuff I probably would have screwed up if there weren't people at the board of elections kind of talking you through some of these processes. Definitely get going on that. Social media, I was not a social media guy before this campaign. I kind of abstained from it, but it's definitely needed. So start building that kind of groundwork too. And then volunteers, really a good group of friends and coordinating weekends that people are free or knowing when people can get out. But even if that's something you don't have a lot of, really, get ready to knock on doors. Buy a good pair of shoes because you're going to need it. Download voter data from your county's board of elections because sometimes the Democratic Party of Ohio didn't give me access to the voter data. I had to
Mhm.
go do it myself. And I've heard that from other people. But all of
Hmm.
these resources are kind of out there in disparate areas, but it's not terribly hard to get started.
Yeah, that's interesting. So when did you get started?
Late. I got started very late. The signatures for the ballot needed to get turned in February 15th of this year, and I started getting signatures in January, like the third week. So I only ran a campaign of about 3 months.
Gotcha, gotcha. And it sounds like it's as grassroots as it comes.
I could not. If there is one thing I would do over, I probably would tap more people for various things because being your own treasurer, being your own campaign manager, that does get it's a lot of balls in the air to juggle,
Yeah,
and there's a lot of different things to keep on a calendar.
yeah,
And really what you want is at least maybe one other person to help you do stuff like outreach or manage your social media because all of that constantly becomes a thing you're thinking of. But again, 3 month campaign, 44% of the vote, and a lot of it coming from just door knocking and I think proudly wearing the fact that I was a progressive on
yeah,
any of the stuff I did. I don't shy away from that. I don't think people should if they want to run as a democratic socialist, if they want to run as a communist, whatever, man. Be proud about who you're running for because the goal is to give people options.
yeah, absolutely. You transitioned me perfectly to our next question. You got 44% of the vote. Over 12,000 people voted for you. That's just amazing. I was telling you
Yeah.
before we recorded, I checked the results the next morning and I was like, holy shit. Team Jesse turned out. Like, that's
Yeah.
awesome. So let's talk about, I know we were talking a little bit about it too before recording, but what was that night like when you saw those results come in? What went through your mind?
Yeah, it going into the race, and I think this is probably important for people who are planning to run. I went in kind of not expecting to win. I had that very, very kind of baked into my head that losing is an okay thing, especially because I was running against such, Bill DeMora is a 30 plus year Democrat operative. He has been a part of the county chairs. He has been a part of the established party, like the actual Ohio Democratic Party. He was a caucus chair. He's done so much, and he was an incumbent, which the incumbent bias is massive.
Yeah, he's like the definition of establishment Dem
Yeah.
when it comes to Ohio politics. Yeah.
And it's a thing I learned very quickly as I connected with people, and everyone was like, "Oh, you're running against Bill," you know. But I went in thinking like the goal was to just give people something to actually give, hopefully, momentum towards the fact that the establishment Dems can't do whatever they want all the time, that people are aware of it. And I think that this was a good race for that too, because I think this is the most I've heard people talk about primaries and the importance of them and like what they are. Because I think a lot of people go into a primary, right? And the amount of conversations I had with people at doors and them being like, "Oh yeah, we vote straight ticket Dem all the time. Yep, we're going to go vote on May 5th and we'll vote for a Dem." And you're like, "Well, they're all Dems though." Like, you know what I mean? Like that doesn't help this situation specifically. But, I knew that it was unlikely I would win. But my goal was to, like I said, at least give people something to vote for and something to shake up the conversation. And yeah, the polls closed at 7:30. Numbers started coming in around, I think, 8:15 or something like that. And the initial numbers were very like, he was up. I don't even know how much. I think 40-50% from the early voting, which they can put anybody from the Franklin County Democratic Party just stands out in front of the early voting location and gives out that sample ballot. So
Yeah.
I knew that would be probably a large number to overcome, but add every 10 minutes or so, man, that number kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller to the point where I thought I would be within striking distance. And when you look at the actual like numbers, if I would have had like more money or somebody post out in those areas, I think we could have won.
Yeah.
I don't think money is everything. I think it is a reality of the way the party establishments have created networks that tie each other together. But looking at those numbers come in, I was kind of shook by how much people in areas I didn't even get to, how much they turned out, right? Like
Yeah.
DeMora spent a ton of time on campus. I know that. And yet I basically was like, I'll do very little. And I won campus. I totally destroyed my neighborhood. I won in a lot of areas of Clintonville and like Minerva Park and far west. And those are some of the areas I didn't get a chance to get to. And my takeaway from that really is how much people want change. People are looking for something further left, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was blown away by those numbers. I thought the day of is impossible to tell, right? Everybody asked you, how do you think you're going to do? How's it going? And you're like, there's no polling at this level. I couldn't tell you. Nobody booed me. So I felt like that was, and I was at polling locations from 7:30 a.m. to 7:30. We were out all day, and everybody, plenty of people were supportive and plenty of people walked right by you and all that. I had no idea, but by the time we got the final numbers, I was very proud of what we did.
Yeah, you absolutely should be. It's an incredible accomplishment. And I meant to mention this when we were talking more specifically about your campaign, but your 3.5-month campaign was also while you were working full time.
Yeah.
Like that is that is very important to point out.
Yep. Yeah. And that's why I say get another person to help you if you can, because it's very tiring to constantly have campaigning on your brain.
Yeah.
You go to bed and you're like, I should have sent like 3 more emails. I should have done like 1 more social media post.
Yeah.
But I think a big takeaway is like, it's hard, but it's doable.
Yeah.
You can do it. You don't have to think that it's out of reach. You have to be realistic about your ability, but you can do it.
Yeah, I love that message. Let's talk about numbers
Mm.
specifically in terms of money.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, you alluded to I mean, just going up against an establishment dem and incumbent, like there's going to be a huge gap in money
Hmm.
versus a grassroots campaign. Can you kind of talk us through what you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah, I'm happy to give numbers. It's all public information by this point anyway, so
Awesome. Yeah.
nothing crazy. We don't have the final tally for both of us yet, but I can tell you, I basically stopped spending at a certain point, and we have a little bit left in the war chest, but essentially 5,500 is what I spent. A
Wow.
lot of that on the websites and kind of
Mhm.
infrastructure stuff like that. No money went to like consultants or anything like that, right? It was
Mhm.
basically website and literature, like your print stuff. I
Yep.
will tell people right now, yard signs are crazy expensive. So
Really?
you could get basically 500 yard signs is going to cost you about $2,700.
No
Yeah,
way.
they're
Okay, I
crazy.
did
They're
not
crazy
realize.
expensive. The first time I got a quote, me and a lady at Capital Printing, Kim, we became buddies over the months. The first time she sent me a quote though for yard signs, I was just like, I had no idea. Like they would cost more than dozens of pages of literature that you print out and give at doors or whatever. But yeah, so when you see people with yard signs, they spend money on yard signs. I can tell you that. But we haven't seen Demora's post primary amount yet. And I know, so numbers we had to turn in on April 15th. So then you have basically another month of spending before the post primary
Mhm.
has to get turned in.
Mhm.
So we'll know that in about mid June. But I have heard two different numbers from two pretty well established insiders, and he spent probably between 80 and 90.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. He spent, let's just say, $85,000 on this campaign.
That's the alleged number. I know that by the pre-primary numbers, he had spent 65-ish. Uh,
Even 65 compared to 5,500. And you came out with 44% of the vote. Like that is
it's that if I were a donor,
Mhm.
I would consider that kind of stuff. Or if I were a party campaign chair, I would consider that stuff.
Absolutely.
We're talking less than 50 cents essentially for a vote compared to he only got around 2K more votes than
Yep.
me. And I mean that's I couldn't tell you how much. And here's the reality too. A lot of that is on consultants.
Mhm.
A lot of that is on just sending mailers out. I know we didn't get any at my house until probably 2 weeks before the election and maybe a week of, where we got two or three different pieces from him.
Mm.
And I have always said that money creates lazy politicians, right? Like I don't think he went door knocking. I don't think he talked to people. He was just going to spend money on it. And
Yeah.
what an incredibly ineffective use of resources for anybody.
Yeah. I love that money makes politicians lazy. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
wow, that's such a good point.
If you have less money, you have to work harder.
Yeah.
It's just a reality.
Yeah.
But that work, I think, is more appealing.
Yeah.
It's impossible to tell, right? Post election, how many people did I get from door knocking versus how many people did I get from just dropping a mailer off? How many people
Mhm.
just voted against the establishment, right? But I can tell you that I probably had more conversations with voters in 3 months than Bill has had for 4 years. It's
Yeah.
just probably a reality. And I wasn't afraid to knock on doors that were red.
Mhm.
I wasn't just going to keep us in a safe spot, because I don't think that's how you build a coalition. I think you build a coalition and an excitable voter base by actually talking to the voters.
Yeah. No doubt. I want to talk about specific structural or institutional barriers that
Mm.
made it hard for you as a non-establishment candidate to run in the Democratic primaries. I hate to ask, like, did anything surprise you? Because I feel like anything you're going to say is not going to be super surprising to me. But can you kind of walk us through some barriers that you ran into?
I think the first barrier is just the lack of resources available to you, or the lack of resources that can be available to you that you could get.
Mm-hmm.
A big thing that probably people should know is if you run for a established party, so if you run it as a Democrat or you run as, well, I don't want to speak for Republicans, I don't know what the fuck they do. But I can tell you in Ohio, if you run as a Democrat, you can actually get your mailers sent through with paid postage by the Democratic Party. So if you print the
Oh.
mailers and go through a process, they'll be the ones to send it out, which is why if you look at any of the mailers you probably got from, I know Don Leonard paid for his own, but if they came from establishment Dems, they probably were paid for by the party. And it's just a reality of knowing how you can get that done. I
Yeah.
didn't learn that until probably like way too late, but
Mm-hmm.
nobody
Nobody
told
was,
me.
no one was knocking on your doors letting you
Nope.
know.
I kid you not. I reached out to the ODP on two separate occasions for just any resources and never heard back. I don't know if that's, it's election season. Maybe they're busy. I don't want to assume like maliciousness
Mm-hmm. But
because
it's a data point.
I don't think that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
But it is something that I was like, I sure have less, I sure have less resources right now than if I had known what to do.
Yeah.
Another big problem we ran into was lack of people wanting to host debates or forums between me and Demora. And I don't even know if he would show up. But the reality is a lot of these kind of party organizations like it's going to be very Ohio or Columbus specific, but like the Clintonville area progressives or the Upper Arlington area progressives, they have such an inroad to the Franklin County Democratic Party
Mm-hmm.
that there seems to be, I won't say who, but I will say someone used the phrase he'll cut us off at the knees if we do that. And
Wow.
I think part of that is Bill's strategy was don't give me attention, um, which valid strategy, but
Yeah.
I think it's cowardly, but it's still a valid strategy,
Yeah.
especially given that I came in with no name recognition, right?
Right.
Like I said, I'm just some guy. I'm just some guy.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a big thing where, I came in kind of looking for a fight, and I feel like I never got the fight I wanted, but that also kind of made it fun because I felt like I could kind of poke the bear and
Mm-hmm.
really let people kind of see that lack of participation.
Yeah.
You and I met at that event held by the Central Ohio Young Black Democrats.
Yeah.
And I brought it up when they brought me on the stage, and I brought it up. I'm like, where is
Mm-hmm.
he?
Mm-hmm.
Why are these people not participating in these events other than they want to sit by and just coast through by donor money and party insider operations? But I will say that for all those barriers that we ran into, there were tons of people who were reaching out from an individual perspective, right? Not party insiders or anything like that, but just community members who were also bothered by the stuff that they were seeing our leadership do. So we had a ton of support from just random politically connected people, or politically focused people, I should say, who that's your bread and butter.
Yeah.
If you're running as an anti-establishment candidate, is the people who are really into politics locally, they'll reach out to you. So I got to give a big shout out to all those people who helped kind of break those barriers down.
Yeah. Totally. Along those same lines, was there a conversation or event or anything, an interaction that has really stuck with you from this campaign, whether it's from a potential constituent or, any of those political folks that are, paying close attention here in Columbus or?
Yeah, I think that there are two things that really stood out to me. One, very simple, a group called the Resistors. They are a group of ladies who met during, I believe it was during the Women's March in DC in 2016. And kind of ever since then, they've gotten together monthly, and they basically get together and talk about politics and how to kind of keep their organization moving forward, who to reach out to, what they can do to be politically active. And they invited me to come speak. And, we sat in a room and back of Zaftig Brewery.
Mm-hmm.
And we just kind of talked for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I felt like it was the most connected I have felt to a group who were really looking for change,
Mm-hmm.
especially because there's this thought that like I went into this campaign thinking like the younger demographic was obviously going to be who would gravitate towards me, but it's really not. There are a lot of older folks too who have seen this party kind of grow weak,
Mm-hmm.
grow very listless, I think I would say, right? No direction, no real idea of what to do. And if anything, watching things like, they're the people who were the most vocal about ranked choice voting ban that
Mm,
Demora sponsored, right? Those are the people who were, a lot of those people are older than you probably would guess, who are the most upset about that.
wow.
And it really caught me off guard by how off I was from like month 1 to month 2 about who my primary supporters would be.
Yeah.
But those are definitely a group of people, not just the resistors, but older folks are definitely really engaged in a way that we need to figure out how to target younger folks too at a broader scale.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing was I knocked on a door probably month 2 of campaigning. And this older lady opened the door, which looking at my list, I was not expecting. I thought it was gonna be a guy. And it was his mother who answered the door. He wasn't home. And we talked for probably 20 minutes. I was just standing on the porch in the sun. I definitely got a sunburn that day. But she talked a lot about how she's always voted Republican. She's always voted, conservative. She probably feels like she's more libertarian than not. But it's those people who, like, when you talk to, right? We have this thing in the Democratic Party where we're constantly pointing out the problems with, the right and the fascists, the authoritarianisms, tendencies, but we lose track of like the common thing to talk about in those kind of doors and those kind of rooms is how much money has corrupted both sides in a way that if we redirect the energy of far right people blaming immigrants, blaming the left, blaming liberals, whatever they want to, whatever their target of the week is, if we
Mhm.
actually make it about material things like how we've completely gutted our income tax system, how we have left behind lower income people through the removal of services, and how a lot of that is to give wealthy people more money, essentially, another way to put it.
Mhm.
Those people tend to start coming around. And I think that that's kind of what we need to be focusing on is, I talked to this lady for 20 minutes, never aggressive, she never got mad. She never, I just listened to her talk. And a lot of the issues she ran into, you could point directly to like what she wants is more secure services for her. She was disabled.
Mm.
Um, and she voted in every election and she felt very, very bothered by the fact that, she's finding it harder to vote because of the lack of absentee ballots that are going out, the way we're restricting that kind of process. She can't leave the house without she was attached to whole house oxygen.
Mm.
She can't leave. And that's the kind of stuff that like the Republican side is trying to strip away in many ways while blaming it on other things. And if we keep having these conversations about power rather than about party, we can reach out to a lot more people.
Yeah, I love that. This is getting me excited for hopefully your next run. What is in the future for you, Jesse? Is this the beginning of a political career?
It's been tough to kind of consider fully.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you this. So we talked earlier about how there's always campaigning on your brain while you're campaigning, especially when you're doing it all. Day after, like on May 6th, I felt like my brain had turned off. Like it was the first time I'd had like no thoughts. Like no,
Good. You deserve that.
I was completely like, I guess this is it. Like,
Like,
uh,
oh, I guess I could take a
yeah,
nap now.
whatever. I have nothing to think about right now. There's nothing because you always have May 5th on your head. Like
Yeah.
for months, you're like, I got this date. I got this date. I got to go for it.
Yeah.
So the quiet has given me a lot to reflect on, and I got a lot of support. Kind of post primary results. A lot of people have reached out. A lot of people have given me very kind words, much like yourself, about the results were much more higher than people were expecting, I think,
Yeah.
including me. I have been asked to look at potential seats in the future by some insider people. and I think I will. The goal is to not go quiet, right? I did this because I want to help. And if I don't help because I lost, then what was the point? You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm definitely going to be participating probably in future elections. But in the meantime, I definitely just want to be engaging with a lot of these organizations that need help, need volunteers, campaigns that we can dedicate time to, right? You know, we're in Don Leonard's district. We're going to probably volunteer to help him just because we're trying to flip a seat here.
Yeah.
And I know that he's going to need the help. So yeah, it's definitely about staying active, and I think that there will be more races to run in the future.
I'm so happy to hear that. Like I said, seeing those numbers, I can't put myself in your shoes, but if I could, I'd be like, wow, that is something you can work with for sure.
It's funny. It's like on one hand, I'm like, all right, yeah, that's pretty crazy, but I'm also like, 45 was so close. We were so close to 45%. It's one of those things. You're like, should I knock on? You know, you have both. You have this,
Yeah.
and to be like candid, it's grueling. Um, it's fun to run though.
Yeah.
You know, it's fun to have a goal. It's fun to have motivation to do something that you believe in. And, you know, campaigning is the kind of thing that really, I think, instills within you whether or not you believe the stuff you're going for. You
Mhm.
know, if you really want it and you really believe it's the right thing to do, it helps you knock, 10 more doors. And some days that's what you really need.
Yeah. I want to ask you one last question. Critics always say progressive challengers are far too left to win general elections. After this crazy few months of your life and running
Yeah.
this race, so what's your response to that argument?
I'm gonna be as blunt as I probably can be.
Please.
It's fucking dumb. It's
Yes.
straight fucking dumb.
Snap.
It is so self-sabotaging. It's so unserious about winning. It's so blind to what people are looking for. I think that anytime somebody is saying it's too far left, it's too extreme, I counter with from what? Right? What
Right.
too far left from fucking what? From
Mhm.
the fact that we have, Nazis in the fucking Statehouse, from the fact that we're constantly going after initiatives that voters push for and saying we should give Medicare for all, that we should protect women's rights to abortion, to looking for ways to stop letting corporate interests drive everything that we do in society. That's too far extreme. Fuck you. Grow up.
Right.
Like, pay attention to the shit that's happening, and maybe if our leadership wasn't so interested in their donors monies that are in the top and more interested in their constituents and the well-being of them and setting up a future for not just the wealthy, maybe we would get some more shit done. But it's cowardly, and I would reiterate, it's fucking dumb. It's how we're going to keep losing. If we keep
Yeah.
ignoring a huge chunk of our voter base, we will see a continual loss. And then we'll go, oh, we can't do anything about it. Oh, whoa, why doesn't anyone want to turn out and vote for us? It's crazy. It's crazy watching people self-sabotage for holding on to the most meager amount of power they can.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It absolutely is. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Progressive challengers are not too far left to win general elections. We saw Jesse Baker run a 3.5 month campaign against an establishment Dem with $5,500, and he
Yeah.
got 44% of the vote.
People want
And
something to believe in.
people want something to believe in, truly. And like, I can't even tell you how excited I was to. I mean, I think I've already said that twice, like this podcast. How many times have I said it to you? Like, it was just so amazing to have a progressive option on my ballot for my state senator. And I just can't thank you enough for running, for giving the constituents of Senate District 25 an option.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Like, it was fun. It was important. And to kind of reiterate your point, in most races where we had progressive candidates that were not facing an incumbent, they won. Right? Like, if you had open elections and progressives were running, they had a higher tendency to win in this past cycle than ever before. We have a younger generation voting now. They are not all centrist neoliberals who are turning out to vote, and we can't keep catering to that vote, we have to give them something to turn out for. And I was happy to run. I was happy, like I said, I was happy to give people something to come out to vote for because I felt like that's what I would want. And we got to run campaigns that are important to the things that we would want, right?
Yes.
I don't mind losing because I ran a campaign that did everything I thought I would do, right? I didn't get on Facebook because I think that shit's evil. I didn't get on Twitter because I think that shit's evil. We did Instagram, I admit, but I can't give up everything. I can't give up everything.
Yeah, you need social media, like you said earlier.
We didn't hit people with hundreds of campaign emails asking for money, like run a campaign that you feel like you would want to see. And I think that that's going to get people excited to turn out to vote. And, I am so grateful for the amount of people who came out like yourself and took a chance on just some guy,
I think you need to drop that. You're not just some guy, Jesse. You are an impressive politician.
Now I am, but I'm still,
Yeah.
I still think it's important to not lose that because it is what I believe. I believe a better party comes when the people who are in it are not just, I know Amy Acton's running. I don't mean to, discredit, but not just doctors or lawyers or business people. That's all we ever see.
Mm-hmm.
We need people who come from real humble backgrounds to step in and say, I'm a part of the people, and that's who should be in these places, not just career politicians.
Yeah. Everyday folks can run for office, and you proved it. Thank you so much for your time tonight, Jesse, and thank you again for running. It was an honor to vote for you, and I cannot wait to see what you do in the future.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.